So I wanted to open up the meeting, call to order the Government Study Committee of January 14th at 5:32. And
Second that.
who will second that? Okay, Mike, thank you. And we're all in favor, so the meeting is opened. So let me just, what I want to do is I want to see if I can project some items here. We'll do one at a time. I've got 7 items that I wanted to project, see if I can do that. And here we go. Here's the first one. So for those of you that are on the Zoom call, you'll be able to see our agenda. So tonight's agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to read out the minutes. I'll read out the minutes fairly quickly from the December 10th meeting. And then we'll do the reading of the communication I sent to Michael Wood, our chair of the Board of Selectmen. We'll review some correspondence that we received, mostly the input from the town department heads, and then we'll discuss, basically the procedure going from here. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 10th before we get started?
Yes, I give you the approve the minute.
Any
I'll second that.
second by Betty? You've got that, Mike? So we're all set there. Great. So let me take down this and let me unshare it, and then let me pull up one more. Let me pull up this document here so that we can actually see it together, and then I'll even read from it. Advantage of the technology here tonight, so. Yeah, there you go. It's good. Well, I'm recording this as well, so that will hopefully give us an opportunity for projecting it for the townspeople to watch. So, all right. So we had a very interesting meeting on December 10th. In keeping with our method here, I'm going to read out substantially the minutes from December 10th. We opened the meeting at 5:39. It was approved. We also approved the minutes from November 30th. So we have multiple draft versions. Mr. Christopher described the changes to the text and layout for the draft. We discussed some details like in section 5, item 4, a line was added to notify all that there is a difference between an elected versus an appointed position regarding the dismissal as noted from the last meeting. There was a concern that was expressed about, the town administrator would have certain powers, and we wanted to clarify here. We were clarifying that we're talking about dismissal powers would be potentially directed only to, not to elected officials. Mr. Osborne suggested changing the name at the top of the draft to just the word draft. We agreed to put the document to a double-spaced text format, and Mrs. Gorski liked the format and said it will look familiar once it gets to town meeting. Mr. Dempsey motion to accept the draft. Our final draft document for the bylaw. Again, this is our last meeting on December 10th. So we basically were working towards, getting a document that we can begin to distribute, but we didn't want to distribute it to the whole world. We did what I'm now going to explain here, number 4. Next, distribution for comments. Mr. Osborne wants to make sure we have a deadline for comments by the department heads. Mr. Christopher reminded us to put a note in about asking employees to comment on their intent to apply for the position. Mrs. Gorski asked if they could change their mind, to which Mr. Christopher replied that they could. Mr. Osborne wants it sent out promptly. Mrs. Gorski thought a time frame would be fine. Mr. Cox and Mr. Dempsey agreed. I stated that we would send it to the Board of Selectmen's secretary and have it sent via the town's email system. Demore added that he will ask the Board of Selectmen chair Wood about our plan for comments and distribution. So the whole discussion was basically around who we're going to get it out to first, and we decided to do first, send it out to town department heads. And I did not want to engage. I didn't want any of us to engage directly with town department heads. So we all agreed basically to use this methodology where I would send the request for comment to Mike Wood, and he would collect that information and relate it back to me. So everything is captured in the town server as a public document. we just felt them, not to belabor the point, we just felt that that was important. So Rob said it would be, so moving on, Mr. Dempsey asked if we should also be sent the chairs. That was a very good point that Mike brought out, whether we should extend this initial rollout for comment to the chairs of boards, committees, and commissions. They might have valuable comments. Mr. Demore can make proposals to whom it should be sent out to. Chair Wood. So basically, we talked about it and then decided, let's give Mike the choice. We essentially are requesting that it goes out to town department heads, but we also wanted to offer the choice to roll it out to the chairs of committees and boards. Mr. Christopher motioned to distribute only to department heads. Christopher felt that it only should be to the department heads on the first comment. Second by Osborne, passed 4-1-1. So we basically voted on the matter and we decided to go with just the department heads for now. The timeline will be, and here's the timeline that we established. Round 1, which is tonight, we're going to talk about the conclusion of round 1. The department heads had up to January 13th, and then to make their comments. And then round 2, we're going to roll it out to the general public with a closing date of February 14th. And then round 3, the last that will formally be asked, to review this would be the Board of Selectmen. We will distribute to the chairs of boards, committees, and commissions by email in addition to posting on the website. Let me respond to a message from Mike because he's looking for a meeting code. So just give me a second and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, this way here he can participate. I thought I had sent that out, but no problem. I'll do that right now. So just bear with me, okay? Can you imagine? Can do quite a bit here with technology, I suppose. Bear with me, I'm trying to get this out to Mike. My goodness, we have somebody interested in our meeting. We have an audience of one.
I love it.
On a roll.
Beginning.
My goodness. But I understand that we're getting a lot of views with the recordings, and that's why I do have this recorded. So the timeline has been established, and effectively that was it. We will distribute to the chairs, the boards, committees, and commissions by email in addition to posting on the town website. That's round 2. So Mike has advised me that he would prefer to, you know, if we decide to move forward with round 2, and that is to roll it out to the public, we've already decided and voted on it, if you will, the last time, and that is, you know, we'd like to do it not just by posting it on the website, but we'd also would like to, you know, send it out by email to the commissions and the boards. So the next meeting is tonight, and that's effectively the reading of our minutes from the last meeting. Let me shut this and let me move on now to the next important document that I want to share with you tonight. Just do this here. So we had a number of very interesting concerns that were expressed, and some of those concerns that were expressed, in my view, and perhaps you may or may not agree, I realize that I've been sending out a lot of emails that capture the responses and some of the give and take in terms of information. I believe that some of this also basically boils to who has jurisdiction. Let me give you an example. Let's take a look at this document. Let me project it, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, Rebecca Ullman is on. So I'm going to try to share the screen, and let me see if I can pick that down. Here we go, right here. So what, there's 2 schools of thought here. One of them is that the draft that we did, we leave it exactly alone because it meets technically all of the requirements for implementing the town administrator by bylaw, and without oversubscribing it, without writing so much that it tries to, address every possible, impact, especially when that impact it really is non-existent because there's another law that would cover it. So for example, civil service, I'll just throw that out just as an example. Civil service is something that we had mentioned in the bylaw, and the police chief and the fire chief, cautioned us and gave us some good guidance as to what should be included in this bylaw and what should not be, so that we're not creating the wrong condition here that the town administrator has authority in an area that is covered by another area, such as civil service. So in our attempts, so one thing is just to leave it all alone, but then I went back to both John Christopher and also to Mr. Osborne just to get an opinion. And now I'm going to show you effectively first, and then I'll show you another piece later. But effectively, I want to show you the work that John Osborne did. And I felt that it was important that we spoke several times today to kind of review those concerns, because they were coming in, kind of late in the day too. We had several today past the deadline of January 13th. So I think effectively tonight, we're going to be able to address all the concerns and the guidance, excellent guidance that was provided to us. So without further ado, let's take a look at this. For example, you see what's in red. Everything that you see in this drafted document is effectively, this is the drafted document, but the items in red attempt to address the concerns that were expressed by the department heads.
May I interrupt a moment, Joe?
Yeah, I was going to turn it over to you now so that you can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
the first one came in from someone I think in the fire department. The second one is my thoughts on the matter, trying to limit the concerns that John Christopher expressed, which was that the statutes covered most of these issues. I thought it would be helpful to put this sentence in: the state statutes limit the discretion of the Board of Selectmen and their agents within certain departments of the town. And I think that really covers it.
Okay.
Moving along.
Talk about
Now,
this a little bit later, but
yeah, no, you can keep going just a little bit more.
yeah.
Now,
just a
this
placeholder.
comment here, this comment came in from several places, people commenting and saying whether we should have elected positions held by any elected positions, or actually a lot of people wanted to just eliminate the word elected and say any positions in town for a period of, and then the question is, should it be 3 or 5 years? Some groups wanted to consider 5 years, which was the Personnel Advisory Committee, I think, or group thought 5 years would be more appropriate. So I open that up for discussion. I don't mind if we remove elected or we keep it.
All right, let me go around the table. Let's start off with Michael this time. Mike Dempsey, your thought.
What's the purpose in not allowing people to apply? I'm not quite sure that what our thinking was on this.
Well, my understanding is, John, are you there?
No,
John Christopher?
No.
Is he there?
no,
Is John Christopher around?
no,
Well, what happened?
I'm not sure.
Oh, that's not helpful. Okay. The understanding was we wanted to limit the people that could apply if they essentially had been working for the town for some time. In other words, it would help to have fresh minds, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, also you could argue that having someone who had town experience might be an advantage to us.
Well, that's certainly a way of looking at it. I'm not sure that I want to see people who have essentially had an ox to grind in the town government applying, to be honest with you. I think we should look for people who essentially have no prior background and therefore biases.
Yeah.
I mean, this
don't know.
also,
I don't
this-
agree with that, but
okay. All right. Well, I'm comfortable with this because I think this speaks to what we were referring to last meeting, is that, you know, it's somewhat related. We want to make sure that if we're going to appoint a town administrator, that, you know, that town administrator is independent of this process of creating the law, if you will. That was kind of related to that. So we expanded here. So let's read that. Let me read this here again. He or she shall not have held any elected position in a town. This is our town for a period of 3 or 5 years prior to appointment. So I'll have to get clarification from John on that because I don't remember specifically what his thinking was. But I do remember that unless it's in the minutes, that there was a legal relevance to it and it was protective of the town. And I think we would be, you know, a disservice to the committee and to the public to try to now extrapolate specifically what that legal assessment was that was delivered by John Christopher, who's not with us tonight. So
Well,
it's a placeholder. We've that.
The next question is, do we, if whatever the decision is, do we want it to be 3 or do you want it to be 5 years? I don't mind.
Betty,
Oh, boy.
Betty, what's your thought?
As far as elected versus appointed, we've been down this road before and we've heard all the arguments.
Mhm.
And 3 years versus 5 years. 5 years is a long time sometimes. If you've got a very talented, skilled person in that position, it goes by in a hurry. But if it became problematic, is there something in place to address that term?
Yeah.
And, you know, and we always heard, Joe, way back then, we've talked about elected versus appointed.
Mhm.
And, you know, do you want somebody, you know, a neophyte to become the road commissioner
Right.
who might not have any idea what the road commissioner has to do? I mean, that was an argument that we always listened to from Bob Arkelian.
Mhm. Yeah, and there are some people that are elected for, you know, no disrespect to anyone. I mean, there are some people that are elected. We're not talking about appointed. We're talking, you know, elected for many, many years.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that's the most qualified pool,
I know.
to be perfectly. It could be not. It's hard for me to say, but I would be.
Was this something that community members or department heads weighed in on?
John,
Yes, yes.
and what was the specific concern, please?
No, they just said that they thought, I think it was again, the fire department or someone in there thought that the 5 years would be better than 3.
Okay, and we can't. Okay, and we can't explain why. So
No, that was just a reference. That was just a
Yeah.
comment.
Okay.
I just have incorporated any comments that came in that seemed to be relevant, I put in here.
all right, can you isolate who made that comment? I can't do it now. Open up
No,
another.
not really. I'm not sure I can do that. I will try.
Okay, yeah, not now, but then what I'll do is I'll ask for clarification for the next meeting on that.
Okay, so you just want to leave this as is at the moment?
Yeah, because remember, this is a draft, so we're asking for comment.
No, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
Yeah, it's a working document,
a
right?
working document. It's a draft. We're sending out for further opinion. People that
Okay.
feel strongly about that will, you know, if they're paying attention to this meeting, they'll say, well, this is what we meant, or this is what I meant. So I think we're fine.
Yeah, and the reason why.
And the reason
Sure.
why, sure, we're okay.
Okay, moving right,
Opinions and ideas and thoughts.
Good.
moving right along. I changed the format a little bit in this document. And I know we had approved the prior document, but on second thoughts, I was concerned that we had listed all the duties of the person who takes the job under A, B, C, D, E, and F and all that like. And I felt that that was wrong because all the other references in the document were numerical. So I thought it might be helpful also for people who were going to be looking at this document at town meeting to be able to put all the job description, essentially all the job that we were expecting the town administrator to undertake, put it in one place. And
Okay.
that's what I've done. And if you scroll through, Joe, to the back end of the appendix that shows the piece.
All right, I'm trying.
Can you
Andrew,
scroll through?
I will, yeah, just give me a second. I'm trying to get Andrew Cox to come in. Okay, very good.
Okay.
He's coming in late, but- So let me read this now, right here. The list of duties is
It's given in the appendix.
right. So I thought this was interesting because Betty had asked about a job description, but this is not a job description, but we're dialing in some good details here. And John Osborne and I had a discussion today about a couple of these, including some of Rebecca's concerns, which we're going to address them all tonight. So let's just take a look at this.
Rebecca being our town planner?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right. So I'm not going to read all of these, but this is an appendix to the town administrator bylaw. The duties and responsibilities of the administrator are as outlined below, and many may be amended. So some of the ones that I wrestled with were in direct response to the comments that were made by some of the town department heads that therefore led us to make the changes to this appendix that now are highlighted in red. So let's take a look at the first one. That's number 8. John, you want to look over this? Act as the hearing officer? Or
Yeah,
explain that a little bit if you can.
Well, I just thought that, we needed to, there was a comment by the police and also fire that the civil service, we were not a civil service town at this juncture. And hence, at some point in the future, maybe we will. So this allows us to consider that. And so what I've said here is including where applicable, and clearly it isn't at the moment, but it might be in the future. So hence the comment where applicable.
Exactly. And there was a concern by the fire chief in particular and the police chief that, the town administrator bylaw was projecting that position into an area that should not be projected. So it was a great comment, and that'll cause us to make this little change that might probably take care of it. Okay, Andrew Cox is coming in. Mike, any thoughts? And then Betty?
No, nothing for me.
Because you can't read this, but go ahead, Mike.
I know, I'm just listening.
Okay, that's fine.
And I meant when we met the last time and I saw civil service, and I know we're not a civil service community,
Mhm.
and it's mostly in larger cities and towns that have the civil service appointments. Would even leaving that in, would that lead someone to believe that if they applied and would it be an advantage for somebody to have that civil service status? I'm just throwing stuff out. I thought maybe the police and fire would have some questions about that, and I understand that. I'm expressing myself the way I want to.
Is civil service the right system for our town? It's a
Do
question.
we even need that?
Yeah.
We're still a small town.
Yeah. It's a question I can't answer. My
Because that means, we could, I guess we could take people from any place within the Commonwealth. But I know I meant to bring that up at the time because I know we're not a civil service community. And are we opening ourselves up for some unintended consequence of that? I don't know. Those gentlemen, the chief, fire chief, police chief, know better, and they know the pitfalls of the advantages, I guess.
Well, we can eliminate 8 if you prefer. I have no axe to grind in this issue.
No,
If you wish to.
I would like their opinion. If they think maybe we should eliminate it, then I would certainly agree with them.
Okay, well,
When I send
I'll
the
check.
communication, when I send the communication to Mike, I'm gonna say, we're ready to do round 2, send it out to the public.
Mike on it at this point?
Mike,
Sorry?
No, I thought you were trying to get Woody
I
on
think
this call
I think
somehow.
he's not participating in the meeting. I think he's just following along, just
Okay,
with
all right.
unit. So I would expect, and I would welcome the opportunity for those folks who have made comments to come back, take a look at the changes, and then make further comments.
Yeah, exactly, because we have another bite at the apple after this, correct?
At least 2 more bites to
Okay.
the apple.
Very
So
good.
number 8, I think with the change that was made, I think is good to be sent out with the expectation that those who had a vested concern specifically about civil service will take a look at it and say, okay, you guys, you still don't have it right, or you do have it right.
Right,
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
it does make sense. That's perfect sense.
Mike,
Yeah.
any thoughts? Mike Dempsey?
No,
Andrew, are you on? That's why Andrew was on.
Yes, I am.
Okay, number 10 was another concern. Again, the comments we had were just phenomenal. They were
Thoughtful,
thoughtful and deep. So
Good. That's good.
it's what everything we could have hoped for. We had great comments, but very helpful comments that are guiding the process here. So number 10 stuck out for me a little bit. So John, tell us a little bit about the changes there that you made.
Well, you asked me to look at that issue,
Mhm,
and it seemed
supervise,
to me that certainly he wasn't going, whoever is the director is not essentially going to be negotiating contracts and bargaining agreements, but he could supervise their enforcement once they are agreed.
Exactly. Certain people will have their own jurisdiction by their position to negotiate contracts. So we can't make that the exclusive purview of the town administrator. And the way
Exactly.
the way we had it worded before, I'm not sure if we did it that harshly, but it wasn't soft enough to accommodate the reality that there are people in our towns that will have exclusive or near exclusive control over collective bargaining. I mean, probably the biggest entity in town that has probably the most power to enter into contracts and collective bargaining agreements is the Board of Selectmen. So if they choose to delegate that to the town administrator, that's fine, but we don't want to be in a position where the bylaw, seems
Locks them in.
that the town administrator has authority over the Board of Selectmen to negotiate contracts. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Does the town administrator have authority along with, with the administrator sit in with the Board of Selectmen on contract negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience on the school committee, it was a supervised and guided process.
I thought so, yeah.
Like,
I
for
remember.
example, and that's what I think John is doing here by saying in number 10, supervise the enforcement of all labor contracts and collective bargaining agreements, not do it exclusively. So for example, in my experience on the school committee, the superintendent would be a participant
Yes,
with the school committee, to supervise, to guide, really be almost a consultant to help us along, even though we had exclusive control, or not exclusive control, but authority to execute a labor contract, for example.
the labor contract, are these people and groups that are represented with, I don't know what the word is. The police department has representation outside,
Mhm.
and does the highway department does now too, don't they? Don't they have negotiations with their contracts with reps from the union?
I believe that would be the case. Would anybody know for sure?
Yeah, I think it was highway and police, and I don't know if the water department got
Yes, the water department did,
it or
yes.
not. I have no idea. I have no idea.
The water department
It's the
does.
highway department and the police department.
You know, the water department does, according to John, so that makes sense.
Okay. And then now we have full-time firefighters, right?
Well, we also have the strong fire chief law, so I think there's gonna
Okay,
be,
is that in place of
yeah, so that's why when we,
union?
yeah, when we do, the language of this, the creation of this town administrator, we want to make sure that we're not overlapping or overtaking
Okay,
other
absolutely.
jurisdictions. That's what we're trying to do. And ultimately, there is going to be a round 3. And round 3 is town council needs to look at this bylaw when it's ultimately approved as a draft. We go through it a little bit. We have the benefit of John Christopher with.
That's what I was just going to say. John Christopher would know all the things that town council is going to.
With
guide us
excellent,
on also.
with good input, and of course, John
Right.
Osborne's experience and Mike. So we're in good shape here. Remember, we're just building a document for review and then ultimate, not a final here with the towns. So I think we're okay with that. The other item, number 11, let me read this all out and then I'll explain. The 3 things that were highlighted in red are police, fire, and light. So let me just read this out. The administrator, with the advice and consent of the Board of Selectmen, shall prosecute, defend, settle, and employ special counsel when necessary in all litigation wherein the town is a party, with the exception of litigation involving the planning board, conservation commission, and then we also added police, fire, and light, and the zoning board of appeals. So there you go. There's a jurisdictional issue. So when you throw that word all in there, you always have to be careful. All, like necessary in all litigation. So now the exceptions have to be a mile long in some cases.
Exactly.
So I think we did okay with that. The next item was something that was brought up from Rebecca, and she provided us some really, really insightful thoughts. And I don't know if this will fully address the concerns that she brought up, but here's a good stab at it. Number 13.
But by the way, there's a typo error there. Planning is there twice. I will get rid of the second one.
That's fine. I can even do that now. So
Get rid of the first one then.
well,
Good.
so go ahead. Why don't you deliver the concern and I can read out the language if you'd like. So can you encapsulate Rebecca's concern, Rebecca, town plan?
Rebecca was very keen on the planning process. As Mike Dempsey pointed out earlier on, that the current master plan has been collecting some dust in the last few years. We were concerned that it should be renewed or certainly updated, and Rebecca showed interest in that. However, the concern was that if Rebecca wasn't there, would the planning board ever get around to doing it? And we did have a discussion, and John Christopher suggested that if in fact it needed to be done, the town should be able to put the arm on the planning board. We could only get rid of the planning board by essentially an electoral process, and that's not going to happen. So as a result, excuse me, I've got a phone ringing here. Okay. Val? Okay. So sorry about that. So that if the planning board were reluctant to do it, and though the town administrator thought it was important that it be done, then the town would take legal action in the nature of mandamus to force the elected officials to perform their statutory duty. Essentially, it's a shot across the planning board's bow that please, you need to keep that the current master plan up to date, and you need to use it.
What would the town planner's role be, and should we have that referenced.
I'm not sure. We could do that, but I don't think we want to lock in somebody who might not be there. It's
Right.
good that we have someone at the moment, but there's no guarantee that we will have somebody.
So
So I
what
don't
we're
think we
definitely-
should.
What we're definitely doing, however, because it's not mentioned, is we're not saying the town administrator is the authority and the force and
That's correct.
will be required to
That's correct.
either take out an old master plan and
Work on it.
or
Exactly.
develop a new one.
Exactly. But they have to make that decision, but they need to do it.
Who's they? The plan.
The planning board.
Boy,
Okay.
So it's encourage the updating. Notice not directed, because they are elected officials, but we can encourage them to do it. Mike, does that sort of satisfy you? Mike Dempsey?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Can I talk to you about number 12? We didn't do anything here, but Rebecca was the one person that brought this to our attention. We have the blessing of someone like Rebecca that would have the passion, the network, the knowledge to be aware of and to pursue grants that would benefit our town. We couldn't possibly expect, and we might have people that are the same with the library or in public safety or conservation. Be aware of grants and opportunities out there. So we definitely do not want to vest the grant writing authority exclusively with the town administrator when we have more focused, talented people that would be aware of and have the ability and have the network to be able to draw money in that would not even be known to the town administrator. So let's read number 12 and see if anybody feels that we're doing this part right or we're not doing it right. With the goal, if you'll permit me the discretion here, with the goal that we should not vest this exclusively, this grant writing authority exclusively under the town administrator. So let me just sit back here and just read this because I haven't read it since this afternoon. Maybe I'll read it out loud for the public. The administrator, with or without the request of any town officer, department, board, committee, or commission, shall be responsible for review and initiation of all state, regional, and federal grants which may be financially beneficial to the town. He or she shall be responsible for the oversight, review, and completion of all grant applications.
Excuse me, Joe.
Yeah,
I did change something here, and I don't see why it's not changed. Maybe I sent it to you late.
okay.
I removed "and initiation of all."
Okay, hold on, let me find that because I'm going to type right in.
It's on the second line, towards the end of the second line. Initiation of all state, regional.
Okay,
So,
So you-
and initiation,
you
get rid of that.
okay.
That was the in red. Put that in red.
So,
That's
and
it.
initiation of all state, regional, federal grants, or just?
Yeah, review, say regional should, no, it's the part is the initiation. That's what she was concerned about. She said they're not going to be knowledgeable about initiating that issue. But he certainly should be able to review it. So review state and regional and federal. And you can get rid of and of.
Yeah, that word "all," we always got to be careful with that word "all."
All right, just get rid of all as well if you like.
Yeah, that word is that "all" is a dangerous word. So now
Okay.
let me read this to you, okay? Because when I copy this, it'll be fine. So the administrator, with or without the request of any town officer, department, board, committee, or commission, shall be responsible for review of state, regional, and federal grants which may be financially beneficial to the town, he or she shall be responsible for the oversight, review, and completion of all grant applications except as otherwise authorized by statute, and seek the advice and consent of the Board of Selectmen whenever any grant requires a financial commitment from the town. He or she shall assist any town department in the application for grant. That's fine. But that's one way. That's, what if the town administrator, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but what if the town administrator has no clue about a grant that's out there that would benefit the our town in terms of conservation measures?
Well, I'm assuming, and maybe this is a poor assumption, I'm assuming though that that person that has essentially got the job will bring it to their attention. The person who is going to be looking at grants.
So let's continue with that thought. So Mike Dempsey finds out that he can bring in $50,000 to do something that'll benefit our town through, I don't know, whatever conservation related authority.
All right.
How do we like to engage almost autonomously to pursue that grant
That's, Joe, that's what,
without
Has
interference
occurred
from
in
the
the
town
past.
administrator? Say it again?
that's what has occurred in the past, you know, the only requirement that I've ever had on grants is to make sure the selectmen are informed and to convince them to be on board with it. But that's about the only thing that anyone else in the town did besides myself on some of these grants. You know, I would write them, I would deal with the state authorities, I would follow through on all of it. So I don't know. I don't think we want to say this the way it says.
Those more comments being called in?
Don't know. It's
Just,
a hotline tonight. You know, I think with the grants,
yeah,
and I know, like at the housing authority, the grants that are being advertised federally or locally, statewide or whatever, come into that department, would come to the housing authority. So, and I'm sure the police department gets those sent directly to them. And from there, I know nobody's going to turn their backs on any money they could possibly get. Maybe they take that and go to the Board of Selectmen and say, is this okay that we apply for this? And will you be signing off on it with us? Or the town administrator. But, you know, Mike's very conscientious about that grants and applying for them. And it's a lot of work. That's why Rebecca was, you know, a godsend when we got her. So, and no one wants to miss out on any grant money. And the highway department used to get it after we'd have, you know, maybe some hurricane or flooding or whatever, you know, there was grant money available. Or they'd call Lenny Mira or Bruce Tarr and say, you know, we're applying for this. Do we have your support? Just trying to recall how it was happening when I was there. So.
let me, everybody just hang in there for just a moment. Let me just type something out, just for the heck of it. If you'll humor me for a moment. I'm just trying to think. That's why I'm not that I can't spell it. I'm trying.
Right click, and it'll give you a word.
No, I'm just, hold on. independently,
There you go.
um, with the town limited to an advisory
Capacity,
capacity. So
period.
those grants that are secured by qualified personnel from town departments, commissions, and boards can be pursued independently with the town administrator's role limited to an advisory capacity.
Period.
Right. So if Mike can bring in $50,000, I don't want anybody interfering with that. Bring it in. If the police chief can bring in $20,000 for, I don't know, training his officers, go get it. And we don't want anybody interfering with that. Congratulations. If you want to have the TA, coordinate, or you need a second opinion or some help, that's great, but it's on you. If you're qualified to do it, go get it. That's my thinking.
Okay,
Live and unrehearsed.
brilliant.
There are grant writing courses available at Northern Essex too. Sometimes I think people are intimidated by taking on, a grant application, but.
Yeah, I heard it's a lot of work. I know my son was involved in grant writing.
Right, the people that do that are worth their salt.
Yeah. So, and we want to encourage people. We've got some real talent in town.
We've got some
we have
talented
talent.
people, absolutely we do.
And I think, I will publicly express one thought that Rebecca said. That person has, first of all, there's passion in a particular area. There's also networks,
Exactly.
like I might be an expert in finance and I've got my own network of financial people and geeks that I hang out with, and I can find out about some, grant that nobody else would know about.
Exactly.
If I'm a person of authority in our town, I would like to pursue it without A, having to ask permission, or B, playing second fiddle to the town administrator to go after it.
Right.
I'll be, real blunt about it. So, okay.
It's like scholarship money, so many scholarships go sit there, no one's applied for. And, somebody else can say, there's lots of money available for this.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Well,
All right, now question, Joe.
Go ahead.
These things are in red at the moment. Are we going to approve of these things, or are we just going to leave them there in red?
No. Make them all black. Turn them all black, and
Okay, that's what I need to know. So go
That's what
up and look at the.
unless anybody on this call, any one of us objects to any of it, I think we should turn it all black. I'm going to send this back to you. When I save this document, I'll send it to you, John, so it'll capture
Okay.
my sentence.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
We should return now to section 3, financial responsibilities. No, way back. Go way back, Joe. That's it. Keep going.
Yeah, hold on.
Page 3. You're almost there.
Okay, section 3. Here it is.
Okay.
Responsibility.
Now,
Go ahead, please.
this red piece in here is totally redundant. I was discussing some criticism that was leveled by the town accountant. Her name is Ellen, I think it is, Petrillo, and she had some things to say. She was very concerned that the way it's written at the moment is that the town administrator would have ultimate power over all financial matters. And if you had a bad actor, they could essentially drain the money out of the town until we had no money left. So she is concerned about the way that's written. And essentially, when I did talk with her, and I think Joe has talked with her too, that essentially the current administrative structure, the bylaw section 2-36A, which we refer to there, needs to be changed in order to clarify and limit the power of the town administrator. So that's a piece that has to be done, run parallel with our current work. And so I don't know, Joe, if you want to make some comment on that.
I definitely do. Let me just save the changes because I'm going to project something else in a moment, okay?
Sure.
But just bear with me. All right, I'm going to show you something. Can you all see that? This is the Section 236A Department of Finance Budget Bylaw. I'm projecting this now on the screen. I'm going to bring, first of all, I'm going to bring your attention to Section 6. I'm going to read it out because it's a lot of words here. Upon consolidation of the position of the tax collector and treasurer. Now, this is our existing bylaw. This is not anything that we've created through this committee with our town administrator bylaw. But follow my thinking, which I know is very difficult to do. My wife's been struggling for 33 years to do that, but follow my thinking. Upon consolidation of the position of the tax collector and treasurer, the persons formerly serving in those capacities shall become assistant collector and assistant treasurer, respectively, for the remainder of their terms. Thereafter, they shall serve for a period determined by the director, meaning the finance director, and at a salary to be set by the Board of Selectmen. The assistant treasurer and assistant tax collector shall report directly to the director of finance and budget, who shall assign duties to them as he or she seems necessary. The director, again, we're talking about the finance director, may consolidate one of the above assistant positions into one assistant collector treasurer. So I think this is almost a legal question, but if we replace the finance director with the town administrator, and I had a wonderful conversation with Ellen. She was very helpful to help me understand her concern. Her concern is very significant. So if we have a rogue town administrator, a criminal, who basically can dismiss the assistant collector or assistant treasurer and steal our money, is that a possibility? Well, technically that's a possibility. However, I believe that she would have agreed with me that that condition would exist today. A rogue finance director could do the same thing. So what Ellen has uncovered is potentially a flaw in a bylaw that's been on the books for a long time. And so the opportunity we have now in creating a town administrator bylaw can address this issue. And I think we're going to probably want to ask legal advice for that in round 3. You know, once the public has had its say, everybody else has had its say, and then the Board of Selectmen have their say, and then we'll say, okay, well, you know, we can't go to town meeting without having the lawyers look at this, make sure that we're not missing anything or creating a problem. So
Why didn't our lawyers point that out to us before?
I don't know. It's never been brought up.
That's scary.
Well, listen, I've said this before. I am the #1 expert in only one thing, my own experience. So here's my experience. In all the years that I've been in public service on the school committee, and, you know, I've only known 2 finance directors, Greg and Denise. So in my humble opinion, we've been in a good place. We've had 2 people.
We've had good people.
Exactly. Well-served. You know, this would never be an issue, not be a concern, but going forward, do we need to, you know, so the concern that Ellen expressed really has not much to do with the bylaw that we're creating. It's bringing to our attention a deficit that we don't want to now continue, you know, we don't want to transfer that over to the new, you know, to the new position. So secondly, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this question, but and I spoke to Ellen about it, and we're both not totally sure, but how do we handle the finance director position? Let's say that tomorrow morning it's town meeting, and, you know, tomorrow's town meeting, and, you know, this gets approved, and, you know, we post the position in a week, and we're, you know, ready to go. What do we do with the finance director's position? There's two potential treatments that Ellen and I discussed today, and we kind of challenged each other, but neither one of us were willing to definitely draw a line in the sand and say, this is what it is. So number one, do we just leave the finance director on the books because it's part of the finance bylaw and simply don't fill it? And in place, we fill a town administrator position with the new bylaw? Or do we, before we can even implement this town administrator bylaw, do we first have to go to the state and by special legislation terminate the finance director? I don't have an answer to that question. All I do know is that all of us know that we're not planning on having both a town administrator and the finance director. So any thoughts on that? Let me start off with Betty first, if you know, or your thoughts.
Those things have to happen simultaneously, correct?
Maybe
There
that's
can't
the
be
answer
any-
too.
Can't be
Yeah,
any
yeah.
room there.
I don't know.
And that's definitely for the Copeland and Page and John Christopher
Mhm.
brains to tell us,
Mhm.
because that's a dangerous situation.
Mike,
We don't know
I'm sorry.
how
Betty.
that could impact the town.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No,
just,
that's okay.
Oh,
No,
good.
but I just, it's great that she pointed that out.
I think it would be helpful at this juncture to have Ellen and John Christopher get together to discuss it initially. And
Good point.
then once that's done and the confusion is the mists are cleared or they're not, then we have to ask the selectmen to bring Copeland and Page in to assist us.
Definitely for legal minds.
Section 6 also provides, in my view now, at least comfort for me, that it is possible to have a town administrator with an assistant collector and assistant treasurer, if that is the preference of the Board of Selectmen. Now, with
Is that the checks and balances piece?
yes, that's what I need to, and that's what we need a little bit more clarification on from a legal standpoint. I'm just not sure. It's beyond my wheelhouse to know for sure.
So may I suggest, since we're
Right.
spinning our wheels here, we move this on and leave that alone at the moment.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to, what we're looking on my screen here is section 6 of the personnel bylaw 2-36.
Right. But I
So-
think we've beaten this to death at the moment. I don't think we can do
Good.
any more.
Excuse me, good. All right, let me stop sharing and bring up the next document.
Page 4.
You want to go to page 4, okay? Hold on. Page 4 of the draft.
Yes, the main part. Yes, section 4. On page 4.
All right. Okay, I found it. Let me share the screen. Just give me a second. There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Here we go. I looked at this piece and it seemed to me the administrator shall conduct annual evaluations of department heads. It seemed to be fine, but in some cases, department heads have boards above them, and where appropriate, after consultation with chairs of boards, where appropriate, seem to be a good insert.
So let me just read this. The administrator shall be designated by the Board of Selectmen to serve as personnel officer for the town with responsibility for the administration of the town's personnel system in accordance with the provisions of the town's, it doesn't say this, but just so everybody understands, existing personnel bylaw and the existing personnel procedures manual. Now, next sentence, the administrator shall conduct annual evaluations all department heads after consultation with the chairs of boards where appropriate, with the exception of the chief of police, chief of the fire department, and manager of the light department. Makes perfect sense, because the way we had it before is the town administrator was in charge of, was the personnel director, and therefore was able to reach into all these departments that have their own structure for personnel, like the fire department, especially, we have a strong chief. Strong chief is the personnel director of the fire department. We don't need that to be interfered with. So.
You agree with that, everybody?
How's everybody feeling about that?
Right.
Good. Andrew, welcome. I know you've been listening, so.
I'm here.
Okay, moving on to the next page, Joe.
Yes, right here, after consultation with the Board of Selectmen. Go ahead.
Okay, this is brought up by some people in the advisory committee, the personnel advisory committee, and they were wondering whether the statement, the administrator may adopt with or without amendment personnel rules and regulations, etc. They felt that with amendment is fine, but without amendment, it was a bridge too far, and I wasn't sure I couldn't answer that question intelligently.
Okay, before we do anything, let's just get focused. We're talking about section 4, responsibilities for personnel administration. Next item everybody should understand is that we already have a personnel bylaw and the personnel procedures manual. Just as a backdrop for anybody that's listening and paying attention, this town administrative bylaw works in conjunction with existing bylaws, of which we just had a discussion about a potential flaw in the existing finance bylaw, but there are 2 other items here. It's a 3-legged stool, the finance bylaw, then it's the personnel bylaw and the personnel procedures manual. So what we're doing here now is we're talking about number 4, after consultation with the Board of Selectmen, the administrator shall from time to time propose, and the administrator may adopt with or without amendment, personnel rules and regulations relating to all town positions, except those covered by collective bargaining contracts and those under the jurisdiction of the school, police, fire, and light departments. I think without is a little, I'm not sure what it does or doesn't do, the word without. I would say time propose and the administration may adopt where appropriate by amendment, personnel rules and regulations relating to. So I would say where appropriate by amendment rather than with or without.
Okay, so we get rid of without, is that correct?
Basically, that's it, yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Where appropriate by amendment, personnel rules and regulations. So same thing, Betty. I know you're not able to see the screen here, but we're this now is starting to shape up as a position that we can actually hire someone, because it's not all encompassing. We have various jurisdictions in this town that need to be preserved in the area of grant making, in the area of administration and managing departments and managing people.
Right.
So we're not creating a monster here, a town administrator position that now supersedes everything. He now is the personnel director for the police department, he or she, and the fire department and the light department. I mean, so the position actually is, in the proper proportion, that the town administrator basically is going to fill in those areas that are not dealt with by any other commission, board, or department or authority. I mean, the housing, for example. I mean, what does the town administrator have anything to do with with the housing administration, for example? Practically nothing.
No, they accept the pilot payment.
Exactly.
Payment in lieu of taxes to services provided by the town to the housing authority. And that's about it.
We have you know, police department, fire department that are extraordinarily well-led. Why would, you know, we're not doing anything to interfere with how those structures operate.
No,
Now, with that said, a highly qualified person, you know, there's aspirational aspects here as well. And I'm sure that if we pick the right person in this position, that person will be, you know, hopefully valued as someone that could provide some input, suggestions, you know, especially if they come in with a lot of experience, maybe relationships that would be helpful to get things done. So that's the hope. So,
guidance.
yeah. And so we continue here, governing relationships with employee organizations, policies regarding in-service training programs, with the exception of the police and the fire departments, grievance procedures for the, so basically the personnel bylaw and the personnel procedures manual is already the blueprint as to whoever is the personnel director. So what is the history of the personnel director in Groveland in recent history? Number one, other than those departments that have carved out legally their own versions, like mostly the police and fire and the light department, for example, other than those three, it was the Board of Selectmen was the personnel director. And that was delegated to Denise, the finance director.
Exactly.
So we're gonna assume that concept, which we have, and transfer that over to the town administrator. But again, being careful that it's done only in the areas that are not handled by anyone else that has that authority. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
It does so far to me.
Okay. Mike, any questions, comments?
No, Joe, everything that I agree with all that.
Section 5, John, go ahead.
Well, I just included subject to the approval of the selectmen within the limitations outlined by state statutes. I think that's important to keep banging away at so that people, this document, remember, is going to go before the town. And I want everybody who looks at it, if any intelligent person who really is interested, to see that we are not stepping over the bounds of, and that we're following the law. And I think it's important to show that on every occasion that we need to.
I also agree, because I don't want anybody to think that we're creating a monster position here, some all-powerful dictatorial position that, you know, is.
Exactly.
I mean,
Now, the next item, the next item is contentious. This was a suggestion, and I have very mixed feelings about this. And that is, the Board of Selectmen may, at its option, designate the administrator to follow the union and contractual employees' grievance procedures, or hearing officer for step 3 grievances, etc. Now, the reason why I put that in was that someone on the Personnel Advisory Board felt that the current grievance 3 procedures were somewhat slow, in contrast to the union and contractual terms. To give you an example, that was pointed out to me, if I may get it. Hang on. The limits were grievance procedure, written statement within 10 days of the occurrence, which gave rise to the grievance, response within 5 working days, extensions by written agreement. These are kinds of pieces that are in the current union and contractual employees grievance procedures. I don't know whether we should include that or not.
I'm not comfortable with follow the union and contractual employees grievance procedure. I'm not sure what the word follow entails.
Well, I didn't know how to word it, so I'm
Okay,
happy
so
to
tell me
leave
what
that out if you like.
Let me wordsmith it possibly. What's your goal? What is your goal? What is it that you want to
Well, if I'm told that the grievance procedures currently under
Slow.
grievance number 3 are rather slow versus union and contractual employees' grievance procedures are more efficient, then I think all parties in the town should be given the same rights in the grievance procedure.
All right, so here's my thought. I know I'm not a good chair tonight. I'm doing a lot of talking. I apologize. I can't correct a deficit or a problem in the personnel procedure through our town administrator bylaw. The deficit exists in the personnel procedure, just like we found the deficit.
Yes,
Potential
that is
problem
correct.
in the finance. So we need to word this differently. The Board of Selectmen may at its option designate the administrator to advise union and contractual employees' grievance procedures. Or if appointed as the hearing officer by the Board of Selectmen for step 3 grievances under the town's personnel and so forth and so on. So in other words, if the Board of Selectmen says, we need you to advise us on this, or we want you to actually run with it, do it yourself, it has to come from the Board of Selectmen. We can't speed up the process until somebody figures out that there's going to be another project down the road and we need to go to our personnel bylaw and fix a problem.
Okay, so what do we do? Do we eliminate that? I can take it out.
Hold on, I'm going to take it out right now. Just give me-
Okay.
yeah, the Board of Selectmen may at its option designate the administrator to advise. Betty, what do you think? Live and unrehearsed here.
I'm impressed.
Is that like a 2-week process? 5 days, 10 days?
Yeah,
That
John, tell us a little bit
cited?
about that while I write this up.
Say that again.
Can you explain the
it just-
3-step a little bit?
In the time of COVID, I imagine it would be a much longer process.
Submits written statement within 10 days of the occurrence. The comment was EE. I don't know what EE stands for, but EE submits written statement within 10 days of the occurrence, which gave rise to the grievance. These were comments that were made by the advisory board in regards to grievance. And I'm just looking at them and wondering whether these should apply to all members of the town, as opposed working members of the town, as opposed to those only with contracts and union contracts. Response within 5 working days and extensions by written agreement.
Just give me a second. Let's see if I can write this. So I'm just taking a quick stab here. It's a long sentence, but sorry. The Board of Selectmen may, at its option, designate the administrator to advise on union and contractual employees' grievances procedures. Let me put a period on that. Additionally, it's not so long. Additionally, Board of Selectmen may explicitly designate the town administrator, the administrator, to act as the hearing officer to manage the step 3 grievances under the town's personnel procedures manual with regard to any grievance brought by a town employee under the manual. There you go. What do you think of that? Let me read it to you again. Additionally, let me read it to you again. The Board of Selectmen may, at its option, designate the administrator to advise on union and contractual employees' grievance procedures. Additionally, the Board of Selectmen, by explicitly designating the, additionally, the Board of Selectmen may, may explicitly designate. I'm going to give you some practical scenarios. Additionally, the Board of Selectmen may explicitly designate the administrator to act as the hearing officer to manage the step 3 grievance procedure, grievances under the town's personnel procedure manual with regard to any grievance brought by a town employee under the manual. So this comes from experience. I've never been the chair of the Board of Selectmen, but there were instances where, since the authority ultimately rests with the Board of Selectmen, you could have a Board of Selectmen chair decide that on a particular grievance, he or she with the Board of Selectmen wishes to handle it directly, or, and they'll ask the town administrator for a consult or advise, just like I put in there, advise. Or they might say, you know what, we want you to handle this. We're just going to delegate the whole thing to you. So if it starts and ends with the board, I think we're safe. I want to be able to give the board the authority to either handle a grievance directly with the advice of the town administrator, or allow them to just delegate the whole affair to the town administrator. What the bylaw does not do is it negates the authority of the Board of Selectmen as the authority for personnel, which it cannot do, because I just told everyone this bylaw is supported by existing bylaw. The existing bylaw vests the authority of the personnel with the Board of Selectmen. Now, just a couple of years ago, they decided to delegate it away to Denise, which ended up being a brilliant move and worked out well, but they can also take it back. So it's the same
So
here.
the Board of Selectmen will have options.
We'll have an option. They'll either handle the grievance directly themselves, or they'll and ask the town administrator to advise, or they might say, on this particular case, can you handle it for us?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your input there, because I had no clue what to do there.
Well, thank you for your work. This is really, there's a lot of words here. I'm just writing a few here. So good. Thank you. Appreciate that. So that I think will work. I think that'll make,
Right.
that'll make it work. So
Going to the next page.
yeah, there we go again with the state statute. So go ahead, please. But by the way, before we move on, any questions or comments on what we just did?
No, do we have a lot left to do?
No,
No, we're almost done.
no, I won't. Our meetings do not go beyond 7 o'clock.
7.
We're going to make it.
7
Trust
o'clock.
me. We're going to make it.
Quarter past 7.
I thought I heard 11.
Quarter
Okay,
quarter
7
past
o'clock,
7.
that
I'm
sounds like
having.
a plan.
Yeah, quarter past 7. I'm having dinner. with-
Betty, we'll be done by 7.
Continue. Go ahead.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, John, please. Thank you.
Move along. Move along.
Um,
Scroll. Keep going. That's it.
yeah, great
Here we go
business.
with the with or without cause again. The comment was made, it was a bit fierce. With or without cause seemed excessive. I am inclined to agree.
Yeah, I think.
I think we can have with cause and leave it at that. Period.
So what we're talking about here, Betty, is the dismissal of board, committee, and commission members of boards, committees, and commissions appointed by the administrator after consulting with the board of, so may be dismissed by the administrator with cause.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like without cause, because that could, boy, that could mean all kinds
It's sticky.
of, yeah, I don't like you, and that's good enough to fire you.
Yeah. And you're
You're right.
Yeah, so the administrator shall have no, all right, so we clean that up. Any board member aggrieved by the decision of the administrator may, here's the items in red, may follow similar processes outlined in union and contractual employees' procedures or within 7 days of dismissal request. So it may follow similar procedures outlined in union and contract.
Again, it's my wording. It's not perfect. I'm happy to leave that for you to hash over.
Hold on, let me look at it again. I would be inclined to say that the administrator should follow the procedures embedded in the procedure manual.
Okay, fine with me.
Yeah. I don't want, we cannot have the town administrator bylaw dilute any existing bylaw that it depends on.
Okay.
Any board member aggrieved by the decision of the administrator may pursue secondary procedures enumerated in the existing personnel bylaw and procedures manual. So if I have a beef with the town and Mike Wood says, you know what? We're going to ask you, town administrator, to handle this for us. And so now I engage directly with the town administrator, and I'm still angry and upset, and I'm ready to sue the world and unhappy. Well, basically, can I pursue secondary measures or effectively an appeal process that would probably be embedded in the, so let me look at this. Any bed agreed by the decision may pursue secondary procedures and appeals as enumerated in the existing personnel bylaw and procedures manual.
Make sure that personnel bylaw and procedures manual is highlighted and is bold.
Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. At least I got the.
Okay, fine. Okay,
Yeah, then
will do.
you can take the colors out and clean it up.
I know. Okay, that's fine.
Supper's
All right, we're
waiting
done.
and Supper's
Believe it or
waiting
not,
and
we
Betty's
are done.
phone
We are
charge is
done.
almost done. So the time,
We're done.
was
Yeah,
like,
40% left.
we're like synchronized swimmers here. All right, any comments or questions? There are other documents, but I won't, I've sent them out to everyone, then they are a matter of a public record, but I do have a complete log of all comments that came through Mike Wood. I responded to all of them through Mike Wood, thanking, the contributors. But can we have a vote now as to whether or not we would like to submit this draft once John cleans it up a little bit for round 2, and that is dissemination to town members in 2 ways, by website and also by emails to commission, board, and committee members. That's my motion. I'm making it as the chair. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
A second by Betty. Any further discussion? Okay, how do you vote, Mike?
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
and Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous. I vote yes as well. So, John, when you send me this document in the next 24 to 72 hours, there's no rush, I'll send it to Mike and say, Mike, we're ready for round 2. Put it on the website kindly, please. And also personally invite town department heads, as well as board members, committee members, and so forth.
Chairman, whatever. Yeah.
The chairs, right, okay. Are we in agreement on that? Is that good?
Yes, for me. Yes.
Okay, our next meeting is going to be February 14th, Valentine's Day. We will celebrate the love that we have for our town on Valentine's Day, collectively. And then hopefully we'll have some comments that we can hash out.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Okay, any more
Thank you.
thoughts? Okay, thank you. All well done. I really appreciate it. Well done. And thank you to all the contributors. We really, really appreciate your thoughts and well wishes for a success of this program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank-